It was a Sunday evening when the phone rang. I remember because the house had been unusually quiet for a weekend. The TV was off, no background music playing. Just the soft rustling of laundry as Cindy folded the last of the towels. I was sitting at the kitchen table, flipping through a magazine, not really reading it, just passing time. When her phone buzzed on the counter, it didn't immediately seem odd, until I noticed how quickly she reached for it. "Hello?" she said, her voice unnaturally light. She moved away from the kitchen, stepping just into the hallway where I could still see her but not quite hear the other end of the conversation. It was the way she kept glancing at me that made my stomach tighten. Her smile seemed forced, like she was trying too hard. I couldn't hear what the person on the other end was saying, but I caught bits and pieces of her responses. "Yeah, I know. No, I think Thursday would be fine," Cindy said, her voice soft and guarded. "Okay, yes. I'll talk to you later." Then, without warning, she glanced up, saw me watching, and quickly ended the call. "Gotta go," she blurted out and hung up the phone before I could even ask who it was. She turned to face me, that same thin smile stretched across her lips. "Just someone from the card club," she said, as if it explained everything. For a moment, I didn't say anything, just watched her closely. Something about her demeanor didn't sit right with me, but I couldn't put my finger on what it was. Her eyes flicked back to the laundry, and she began folding a towel, avoiding my gaze. "Who was that, really?" I asked, trying to keep my voice neutral. She glanced up, her hands freezing for just a second before resuming the methodical folding. "I told you, Ron. It was someone from the card club." The words were casual enough, but the way she said them, the slight tremble in her fingers, told me there was more. Cindy wasn't usually nervous. In fact, she was the calm one between the two of us, always the steady hand when things got chaotic. But now, she was fidgety, her movements deliberate in a way that seemed wrong. I nodded, forcing a smile I didn't feel. "Right, of course. Card club," I repeated, letting the words hang in the air. It didn't sound suspicious, but her behavior did. My mind raced, trying to make sense of it. Why had she rushed off the phone? Why was she so evasive? "Are you sure everything's okay?" I asked, trying to sound casual. Cindy laughed, though it didn't reach her eyes. "Yes, Ron, everything's fine. It's just card club stuff. You know how the ladies like to plan things." She was smiling again, but the tension in her voice betrayed her. She was hiding something, I was sure of it now. I felt a strange knot forming in my gut, a slow, creeping unease that wouldn't go away. I let the conversation drop, but the feeling didn't. I sat there, staring at the laundry she was folding, my mind spinning in a dozen different directions. Why had she cut the call short? And why didn't she just tell me who it really was? "Are you going to the card club again this week?" I asked after a long pause, trying to make my voice sound as casual as possible. "Yeah, Thursday night," she replied quickly, almost too quickly. "It's going to be the usual group. You know, just the ladies." I nodded, but my mind was already racing. Thursday night. That gave me a few days to figure things out. I told myself I wasn't being crazy, that I had a reason to be suspicious. But as I sat there, my gaze flickering from the folded towels to Cindy's perfectly calm face, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. Deeply wrong. "Okay," I said, standing up from the table, trying to act nonchalant. "I'm going to get some fresh air." "Sure," she said, not looking up from her work. I grabbed my coat and walked out the front door, but the cold air did nothing to clear my mind. As I paced the driveway, a part of me knew I was overreacting. Cindy wasn't the type to lie, not about something important. But then again, she'd never been so secretive before. I could still picture the way her eyes darted away from me, the way she ended the call in such a hurry. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe I was imagining things. But the doubt had already sunk its claws into me, and no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't shake it. When I walked back inside, Cindy was in the living room, her legs tucked beneath her as she scrolled through her phone. She smiled at me, but it felt distant. Like there was something between us, an invisible wall I hadn't noticed before. "I think I'll go to bed early," she said, stretching as she stood up. "Long day." "Okay," I said, my voice quieter than I intended. She kissed my cheek, her lips warm but her touch fleeting. As she headed upstairs, I stood in the middle of the room, feeling a strange emptiness settle over me. Something had changed, and I had no idea how to fix it. As soon as she was out of sight, I sank into the couch, staring at the spot where she'd been sitting just moments before. My heart pounded as the questions began to swirl again, more insistent this time. What if there was someone else? What if she wasn't telling me the whole truth? I didn't want to believe it, but the seed of doubt had been planted. And the more I thought about it, the more it grew. Thursday night couldn't come soon enough. I had to know what was going on. I had to find out the truth, even if it shattered everything. The evening of the card club meeting, I parked my car a block away from the community center. The street lamps cast long, ghostly shadows on the pavement as I waited, my anxiety building with each passing minute. From where I sat, I could see the entrance to the center, a nondescript building with faded brick walls and a small sign that read, "Community Center," in peeling paint. As I watched, I noticed Cindy arriving, dressed in a casual yet elegant outfit, a soft blue blouse and dark jeans. Her hair was pulled back into a loose ponytail, and she looked both relaxed and focused. I saw her exchange a few words with other women who were entering the building, and then she disappeared inside. The sky was darkening, and the cold wind nipped at my face as I sat there, shivering slightly. I shifted in my seat, trying to peer through the small windows of the community center, but the blinds were mostly drawn. Every now and then, a flicker of movement or a burst of laughter would give me a glimpse of what was going on inside, but nothing concrete. Minutes ticked by slowly. I fidgeted with the radio, flipping through channels, but found no distraction from the gnawing anxiety in my stomach. The thoughts that had been plaguing me since the phone call replayed in my mind. What if Cindy was meeting someone here? What if this was more than just a card game? I took a deep breath and glanced at my watch. It was getting late, almost an hour since Cindy had entered. The initial excitement of sneaking around had faded into a growing sense of dread and guilt. Was I really doing this? Was it worth it? The decision was made for me when I saw a group of women exit the building, chatting and laughing as they headed to their cars. Cindy wasn't among them. My heart rate spiked. Had she left already? Or was she still inside? I waited a few more minutes before slipping out of my car and heading toward the entrance. I was careful to keep my footsteps light and my movements discreet. The door was slightly ajar, and I could hear the muffled sounds of laughter and conversation from within. I hesitated, then pushed the door open just enough to peek inside. The room was filled with the warm glow of overhead lights and the buzz of conversation. Women sat around tables, shuffling cards, and laughing together. Cindy was seated at one of the tables, engaged in a game with 3 other women. Her smile was genuine, her laughter easy and relaxed. Everything seemed normal. I watched for a while, my initial suspicion melting into confusion. They talked about the upcoming holiday plans, shared jokes, and discussed the latest neighborhood gossip. I could see Cindy in a new light now. She was engaged, happy, and completely absorbed in the game. There was no sign of any hidden meetings or secret conversations. Just a group of friends enjoying a regular evening. Suddenly, one of the women at Cindy's table, a tall lady with curly hair and bright eyes, stood up and moved toward the refreshment table. Cindy turned to the woman next to her, a petite lady with a kind smile. "Linda, can you believe how quickly the holidays are approaching?" Cindy asked, her eyes sparkling with enthusiasm. Linda laughed, pouring herself a glass of punch. "I know. I still need to get my shopping done. Maybe we can plan a little get-together for everyone. That sounds great, Cindy agreed, her voice warm. We should definitely do that. The conversation shifted to holiday plans, and I felt a pang of embarrassment. Here I was, spying on a simple card game, convinced I'd find something incriminating. But all I saw was Cindy enjoying herself with friends. I glanced at my watch again. It was getting late. I felt like a fool. This wasn't what I'd expected, and I was only torturing myself with unnecessary worry. I decided it was time to leave. As I turned to head back to my car, I nearly bumped into one of the women leaving the building. She was holding a stack of coats and chatting animatedly with another woman. "Oh, hi there," she said, noticing me. "Just coming in or heading out?" I cleared my throat, trying to sound casual. "Heading out. I was just curious about the card club." She smiled knowingly. "It's always a good time. Cindy's a great player. She won a couple of rounds tonight." "Glad to hear it," I said, forcing a smile. "Have a good evening." "You too," she replied, heading off into the night. As I walked back to my car, I felt a mix of relief and shame. Cindy had been nothing but honest with me, and here I was, digging through her life as if she were hiding something. The card club meeting was exactly as she described, a simple gathering of friends. I drove home feeling a deep sense of regret. I had let my fears and insecurities cloud my judgment, pushing me to spy on someone I loved and trusted. I needed to find a way to confront these doubts and communicate openly with Cindy. The worst part was knowing that my actions might have jeopardized the trust we'd built over the years. As I pulled into the driveway, I resolved to make things right. I needed to talk to Cindy, to explain my actions and seek her forgiveness. It was time to face the consequences of my actions and repair the trust one had almost broken. The house felt hollow when I returned from the card club. The quiet was almost oppressive, filled with the echoes of my own guilt and anxiety. Cindy was in bed, already asleep, leaving me alone with my troubled thoughts. I knew I shouldn't be doing this, shouldn't be invading her privacy. But the nagging fear wouldn't let go, and I felt compelled to search for something that would ease my mind. I tiptoed upstairs to our bedroom, the floorboards creaking softly under my weight. Cindy's side of the bed was empty, the blankets pulled up neatly. She'd gone to sleep hours earlier, leaving me alone with my growing unease. I approached the dresser cautiously, opening the top drawer where Cindy kept her everyday essentials. I rifled through it, nothing but a few pairs of socks, a couple of old receipts, and her jewelry. I moved on to the second drawer, where she stored her bras and underwear. My hands shook slightly as I pushed through the fabric, but again, I found nothing out of place. "Come on," I muttered to myself, feeling the frustration rise. "There has to be something." I closed the drawer and stood up, my eyes scanning the room. The closet was next. I pulled open the sliding doors and started sifting through her clothes, neatly hung blouses, rows of neatly folded sweaters, and the occasional dress she wore for special occasions. I pushed past everything, pulling items out and placing them on the bed, hoping for a hidden envelope or a clue. I even looked through her shoe rack, checking for anything unusual. When I found nothing, I felt a sinking feeling in my chest. I was trespassing into her personal space, and I hadn't found a shred of evidence. I sighed heavily and walked over to her desk, where she kept her planner and various personal items. The desk was organized meticulously. A small desk lamp, a framed photo of us on vacation, and a neatly arranged set of pens and pencils. I opened the desk drawer and found her planner, a book filled with notes about meetings, appointments, and social events. I flipped through it, searching for anything that stood out. Most entries were routine, grocery lists, reminders to call the dentist, and her regular card club meetings. A small stack of bills and unopened letters lay underneath the planner. I shuffled through them, looking for anything out of the ordinary, but it was just the usual collection of household mail. I could feel my frustration boiling over. My hands were trembling as I reached for her personal journal, a leather-bound book that had always been a private space for her thoughts. I hesitated, knowing that reading it would be a gross invasion of her privacy. But the fear of being wrong, the need to find something to justify my actions, drove me forward. As I opened the journal, the familiar scent of lavender and vanilla filled the air. Cindy had always been particular about her scents, and this was no different. I flipped through the pages quickly, catching glimpses of her neat handwriting, entries about daily events, reflections on our relationship, and even her thoughts about the card club. There was nothing about another man or any indication of an affair. Just her thoughts and feelings. I was about to close the journal when I heard a noise behind me. I froze, my heart pounding in my chest. The sound was soft, but unmistakable, the creak of a floorboard. I turned around, my breath catching in my throat. Cindy stood in the doorway, her eyes wide with confusion and hurt. "Ron," she said, her voice trembling. "What are you doing?" I was caught off guard. I hadn't expected her to wake up, and now I was standing there, caught in the act of violating her privacy. I felt a rush of shame and guilt, the reality of my actions hitting me like a ton of bricks. I'm sorry," I stammered, dropping the journal onto the desk. I was looking for something." "Looking for what?" she asked, stepping into the room. Her eyes were filled with a mixture of hurt and disappointment. "Why are you going through my things?" I struggled to find the right words. "I saw you on the phone the other day. You seemed secretive, and I thought you might be hiding something from me." Cindy's face softened, but her hurt was evident. "Ron, you went through my personal belongings because you thought I was hiding something. You're invading my privacy." "I know," I said, my voice cracking. "I'm sorry. I should have talked to you instead of doing this." She shook her head, a tear slipping down her cheek. "Do you realize how this makes me feel? I thought we were in a trusting relationship. Now it feels like you don't trust me at all." "I do trust you," I said, reaching out to her. Just what?" Cindy interrupted, her voice rising with emotion. "Just let your doubts drive you to invade my personal space. Just let your fears dictate your actions." I stood there, feeling utterly defeated. I had let my insecurities cloud my judgment and, in doing so, had jeopardized the trust between us. The room was heavy with silence, the weight of my actions pressing down on both of us. Cindy took a deep breath and wiped away her tears. "Ron, if you have doubts or questions, you need to talk to me. Don't let them fester and drive you to do something like this." I nodded, feeling a deep pang of regret. "You're right. I'm sorry. I should have come to you first." Cindy took a step closer, her eyes searching mine. "Do you want to talk about this? To clear things up?" "Yes, please," I said, my voice filled with sincerity. "I need to understand, and I need to make things right." We sat down together on the edge of the bed, and I began to explain everything, my fears, my doubts, and the reasons behind my actions. Cindy listened, her expression a mixture of sadness and understanding. As we talked, I realized how far I had strayed from the trust and communication that were the foundation of our relationship. The conversation was difficult, but it was necessary. And as we worked through the confusion and hurt, I hoped that we could rebuild the trust that I had almost destroyed. The silence in our bedroom was thick with unresolved tension. Cindy sat on the edge of the bed, her posture stiff and guarded. The soft glow of the bedside lamp cast a gentle light over her, but it did little to ease the heaviness in the room. I sat across from her, my heart racing as I tried to find the right words to explain the mess I'd made. "I didn't mean to hurt you," I began, my voice barely above a whisper. "I should have talked to you instead of jumping to conclusions." Cindy's eyes were still red from the tears she'd shed earlier, her gaze fixed on the floor. "Ron, I don't understand how you could think I'd be unfaithful. We've been together for 10 years. You should know me better than that." "I do know you," I said, feeling the sting of her words. I faltered, struggling to articulate the whirlwind of emotions that had driven me to invade her privacy. I've been feeling so anxious and insecure lately. I saw you on the phone and it triggered something in me. I let my fears get the best of me, Cindy sighed, running a hand through her hair. I get that you were worried, but you have to understand how it feels to be doubted like this. It's like you don't trust me at all. I do trust you, I said, my voice earnest. I'm sorry for not showing it. I let my own insecurities cloud my judgment. It wasn't fair to you. She looked at me, her eyes softening slightly. The phone call you overheard was from your mother. She was calling to plan a surprise for your birthday. I didn't want to spoil it by talking about it in front of you. That's why I ended the call so abruptly. My heart sank as I realized the gravity of my mistake. Your mother. I didn't even think to ask. I just jumped to conclusions. Cindy shook her head, her expression a mix of hurt and disappointment. Ron, you have to talk to me when something's bothering you. Don't let your doubts fester and lead you to do something like this. I know, I said, feeling the weight of my actions. I should have come to you and asked what was going on instead of going through your personal things. I'm so sorry for that. Cindy's face softened, but her eyes remained sad. It's not just about what you did, Ron. It's about the fact that you didn't trust me enough to come to me first. You let your fears dictate your actions. I understand, I said, standing up and moving closer to her. I want to fix this. I want us to be open and honest with each other. I don't want to let my insecurities come between us. Cindy looked up at me, her gaze searching mine. Do you really mean that? Are you willing to work on this with me? Yes, I said firmly. I want to work on it. I want us to communicate better and trust each other more. I don't want to make these mistakes again. She took a deep breath, and a small, hopeful smile tugged at the corners of her lips. Okay. But we need to be honest with each other from now on. No more secrets or doubts. I nodded, feeling a wave of relief wash over me. Absolutely. I promise. We sat together on the bed, the room slowly filling with a sense of calm. As we talked more, I realized how important it was to address our feelings openly and honestly. Cindy and I shared our fears, our frustrations, and our hopes for the future. It was a difficult conversation, but it was necessary. In the end, we both understood that trust and communication were the cornerstones of our relationship. I had made a mistake, but it was a mistake I hoped we could learn from. As we held each other, the warmth of our embrace reaffirmed the love we had for each other, a love that would help us move past this difficult moment and grow stronger together. Thank you for talking to me, Cindy said softly, her head resting against my shoulder. It means a lot. I'm grateful for your understanding, I replied, wrapping my arms around her. We'll get through this together. The night ended on a note of quiet reconciliation. We knew there was work to be done, but as we drifted off to sleep, I felt a renewed sense of hope for our future, a future built on trust, openness, and the strength of our bond.